Totally. Going back to this question here, the other part of this too is that authorities could easily restrict official on and off ramps. And I really believe that. And I think that if the ETFs didn't come into the picture here, I think that the governments and these big institutions, big banks would be pushing a lot harder for that to happen. And even though we know that there's no way that they could ever stop Bitcoin and they could completely turn off the off ramps, they could still make it extremely difficult for people to buy Bitcoin. And if Bitcoin's going to do what we want it to and what we think it's going to do, everybody has to get some Bitcoin. Everybody has to want some Bitcoin. People are going to have to want to be paid by their employers or by whoever they're working for in Bitcoin. And I think that if it stayed like a really niche and underground asset for forever, I don't think that the price would ever go up. And I think that we're fooling ourselves here. And I think that, you know, this is probably one of the reasons why people watch this channel, because you just have to be realistic with yourself. Like, why are you in Bitcoin? You're here to protect your purchasing power. You want the number to go up in Bitcoin. And I think that if you're going to argue with me on that, I think that you're full of shit. Because as much as I love how much it's going to change the world and how much of a positive impact it's going to have on the world, I would be lying to you if I said that I didn't hope that Bitcoin goes up over time in purchasing power and in price. And, you know, if it stayed this way forever, if it was only just a small community of people using Bitcoin, it would still be around, but it wouldn't have the same implications of it as it will now that we have all of this institutional money coming in. And so just think about that little calculation we did there in terms of how much Bitcoin after this cycle that people are going to be able to get. And if you have some Bitcoin right now, you're in a very good spot. So with that, with the ETFs, and even though they're going to be locking up all this Bitcoin over time, what's that going to do for you? What's that going to do for your Bitcoin? Is it going to make less people want to buy and sell Bitcoin and exchange it for products and services? I don't think so. I think the main selling point about Bitcoin is that it's a scarce asset with a fixed supply. And when you have all these ETFs taking this Bitcoin off the market, what does that do? It makes it more scarce. And so what happens when something is more scarce and there's more demand for it? The value goes up, the purchasing power goes up. So even though there are some negative things about these ETFs, there's a lot of question marks. I think that it's a very net positive here for Bitcoin. And I've been doing a lot of thinking on this and thinking of how this is going to play out. But I really think that we needed the ETFs in Bitcoin. And I don't think Bitcoin stood a chance. It would have been around, it would have survived. People would still be using it, but nobody would give a shit about it. If this big money never came into the market, if it wasn't going to be coming into the market, nobody would give a shit about Bitcoin. And in order for anything to actually catch steam and gain adoption and go through that S-curve adoption, you have to have that big money here. You have to. And like I said, if the banks and if the government and these big institutions weren't able to access it, they would be making a much harder push against Bitcoin. They could easily shut off the off-ramps here in Canada. The government could say they would never be able to come and get my Bitcoin, but they could make it very difficult for me to buy and sell it, to hold it, to exchange it, to buy and sell things with it. They could make that very difficult if they wanted to. But now that we have the backing of all these institutions and these public companies who are buying Bitcoin, I think that there's a much lower chance of that actually happening there.